All right, welcome back, everybody. So today we're going to be talking about a recently announced fight for UFC 312. It's going to be Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis for the UFC middleweight title. It is a rematch. We did have one prior. I think it was the beginning of this year in 2024, and they're going to be one of the first pay-per-views, the second pay-per-view of 2025. They'll be facing off. I believe it's the main event. Definitely 5 rounds. It's for the title. And it's an interesting fight. I mean, first off, we can talk about the fact of whether Strickland deserves the rematch or not. I believe his last performance was against Costa, I think. And I just feel like he hasn't really done much to deserve it. I guess because he was a former champ and because his fight against Dricus the first time was relatively close to the point where many people felt that Strickland won. I've watched that fight a few times now and I'm pretty torn. Like, I had money on Dricus, so I'm leaning towards Dricus won that fight, but maybe that's some bias. I could see an argument for Strickland having won. And going into this one, do I think much has changed? No. I mean, both guys just got a little bit older. I don't think that's really going to affect anything. Dricus maybe took a little bit of damage in that Izzy fight, but overall, he seemed okay. And he's still the same kind of, he's really weird. Dricus to me has always been super strange. When he first got to the UFC, I was like, I am going to fade this man like it's my job because I don't think he's that great. And then I'm watching him and like he doesn't look like he's that good, but every single time he just gets it done. He's tenacious, he's an absolute dog. He doesn't quit, he doesn't give up on himself, and he's extremely athletic, extremely physical, despite having a weird nose thing and then having the nose surgery and his coach saying his breathing's much better. His cardio's always been pretty good. He seems to slow down, but he doesn't really. He pushes through it and he just keeps going, 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 and he just breaks guys. Now, in their first fight, he wasn't really able to break Strickland. Strickland did have a lot of success on the feet. At the end of the day, I think that Strickland is still the much better boxer. He's a much more technical striker. He has, I think he does have more 5 round experience. And, but it's only like what, a couple fights more. He's had a few main events, and then he's also had the title fight against Izzy where it went all 5. And then he had the title fight against Dricus that went all 5. So he has a little bit more 5 round experience. But Dricus showed in the fight with Strickland in the first one that he can also go 5. Despite his cardio looking really weird, despite his breathing being weird, he can still go all 5 rounds. He can still go and get takedowns and land shots. Now, he strikes in these weird flurries where he's like running forwards like this. And he seems like he's really easy to counter. And he does seem, I do think he's pretty easy to counter, but he takes the shots really well. He's got a chin on him. He's not really getting hurt. And Strickland's not exactly known to be a power puncher, a power striker, not really knocking guys out left and right. He's a little bit of a pitter-patter guy. He just boxes people up, uses his output, usually on the front foot. But against Dricus was able to back him up a lot as well. And yeah, he's the better striker, but I think Dricus hits a lot harder. I think Dricus can take shots better, even though Strickland himself is also very durable. And I think that the main difference for me is that it's like this for me with a lot of fights, but here, I just think that Dricus has more ways to win because of the grappling. He could wrestle. He's a solid wrestler. He was able to take down Izzy a few times. He was able to take down Strickland a few times. He doesn't have the best control, but his jiu-jitsu is good. He was able to sub Izzy. That was really nice, even though I had an Izzy ticket there, and I thought that we were on our way to cashing. Turned out that the judges disagreed, and Dricus was actually up in that fight. But regardless, he was able to break Izzy down, and eventually he was hurting him a bit on the feet, got the takedown, and he was able to sub him. In this fight, do I think he finishes Strickland? I think it's possible. I think Dricus can pretty much finish anybody at this point, but I don't think it's super likely. I think we probably go to a decision again where Strickland is landing the nicer, cleaner strikes, and he's probably landing a little bit more, but Dricus is landing harder. He's the one who's getting a reaction out of Strickland with the shots, and he's the one who's able to bring it to the ground and do some work that way, win some minutes, maybe get a sub. It's a possibility. I think he could get a submission. I think if Dricus wins, it's likely a submission or decision because while he can crack and he hits really hard, I don't know whether he's going to be able to knock out Strickland. Strickland, to me, seems like a very, very durable guy as well. So I think we probably go all 5 rounds. That might be a bet I'd be looking to place, and we'll see what the lines are like. I don't know if the lines are up yet. I can actually pull them up. Why don't we check it out while we're here? UFC 312. Okay, so Dricus is minus 175. Strickland is plus 150. It seems a bit wide considering how the first fight went and that you could probably judge it for Strickland and not be out of your mind. I think that's a reasonable scorecard to have given it to Strickland. It was a close fight. So that line seems a bit wide, but at the end of the day, I think Dricus is going to win again. So I'm likely going to pass. Maybe I'll play around with like a Dricus submission decision prop. Maybe I'll do just fight goes the distance, something like that. We'll see. Or maybe I'll just sit out that fight altogether. But to my point earlier of whether Strickland deserves this or not, I get it. I get the argument. Like I said earlier, he's the one who was champion and he lost the belt to Dricus in a very close fight. So it makes sense to give it to him again. But Hamzat came out here, and I know he's been super inactive, but he just dispatched of Whitaker completely. Like Whitaker and Dricus did beat up on him pretty well too, but Whitaker had his moments there. Whitaker just never stood a chance. He got absolutely destroyed. I didn't think that fight would look that way. And watching it at first, I was like, okay, I think Whitaker can survive this onslaught and get to the point where Hamzat's cardio isn't as good. And he just cracked his jaw open or whatever he did, but that was phenomenal. But it doesn't really matter. Like, regardless of who wins this fight, I don't think they're going to do a third fight right away. I think they're going to give it to Hamzat next, and they're going to try to build him up, and then one of these guys will face him. I think DDP versus Hamzat is a way more exciting matchup than Hamzat versus Strickland. I feel like Strickland, his takedown defense is pretty good, but I don't think he stands a chance if Hamzat brings it to the ground. Whereas Dricus, I don't know, man. He's just as much of a physical specimen as Hamzat is, in my opinion. So that could be a really fun, compelling fight. But either way, we're getting Dricus du Plessis versus Strickland, the rematch at UFC 312, and it should be a great fight. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.